I do feel like I need to be a bit more cautious. There's so much grip though. Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and welcome to the Maserati MC20 while I fulfill my dream of driving crazy supercars all around beautiful, sunny Southern California on incredible roads. But if you are in the market for a supercar, you've got your choices cut out for you. It can range anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 in sort of the pre-hypercar lineups. And if you're looking at a Maserati MC20, you've definitely got more than 250 grand to burn, because chances are you're not going to go with a base car. This one, as it sits, is $315,000, which puts it dangerously close to the $324,000 Lamborghini Huracan Technica that we have in our stable this week. So why would one choose the Maserati? Well, if you need Lambo doors, I guess you don't go to Lambo, but these are actually more like McLaren doors because they seem to be dihedral, and maybe they're not, maybe they are, but they're certainly not scissor doors. Anyway, we've got a 3-liter twin turbo V6 and 8-speed dual clutch transmission, and it's rear wheel drive. It looks a lot like a Maserati MC12, so there's some heritage in it, and Maserati doesn't exactly have the greatest reputation amongst car enthusiasts right now, because your options are pretty much limited to Ghibli, Quattroporte, Levante, and now Grecale. And the Grecale is the first, let's say, normal consumer Maserati to get the new design language. Inside, this MC20 is incredibly sparse, but it does have an insanely great Sonos Faber sound system. It is pretty shocking how good that is. But otherwise, there's a passenger seat with a kick plate, MC20 to let them know what they're terrified of while they're riding shotgun, and a tablet touchscreen in order to operate all of the things. But for the driver, you just get your little wheel here and your basic transmission options. Very simple, straightforward, very little space in the rear. You can't really put anything back there, and I guarantee if you're getting hot on the throttle or the brakes, it's just going to fly off anyway. The roof is all Alcantara, and all the touch points are really lovely. These buckets do not recline. They are very fixed, and they're fairly upright, but I think they provide a really lovely driving position. So today we're going to take a look at what it's like to actually live with this. We've already done a fun canyon carving drive to get our first impressions, and I've got to say, when I first drove it, I was not the biggest fan. It was a little nervous. It was a little scary. It wants to go sideways. It wants these wheels to spin. The first drive I took in this car, it freaked me out a little bit. This is an old school supercar. Very little on the market today drives like this. This drives like a 1980s or 90s supercar, but with 2023 power and torque. Oh! We do love a GT4. And while that GT4 RS gives you all the confidence in the world to go into corners, attack them, this requires you to use a little bit of thought. Probably my favorite feature of this MC20 is the mono wiper. I love a mono wiper, and although they're not the best at doing the job of actually cleaning a windscreen, they sure do look cool. So let's jump out there and go for a drive. I love the sense of occasion of getting in this car because the doors really add to that. You don't get that sensation in a Huracan. To start it, we'll get our foot on the brake. And that's it. It's pretty quiet when it comes to its idle, and it doesn't really sound supercar. I don't mean to, I promise I'm not trying to be cruel, but it does sound like those old GM 3500 V6s. Like, I wasn't sure when this came into the driveway if the 1990s Oldsmobile Bravada had just started up. And that could be frustrating if you want the shouty, wild thing, but this does make incredible boosty noises. So first, let's go get some fuel because she is a thirsty girl, and then we'll go play with it on some normal and fun roads. Let's check out the mono wiper. Yes! That really does it for me. So the car is really easy to drive. You've got drive and manual, reverse. We've got our reverse camera here, as well as a camera here. You can make this into a mirror, but it's useless because there's really no visibility back there. But we've also got our nose lift up, which is a godsend right now. And can get out ahead of the GT4 RS because that is the only thing you will hear if we're behind it. So, GT Sport Corsa. There's also a wet mode and ESC off. We don't need that. This car is kind of scary enough as it is. We're in manual mode. And now we can get some of the dirt off of these tires and go for a fun drive. There's also a damper button here. Damper button says soft. There's also a mid setting, which I think is funny because the kids all say mid today to describe things that are a little boring. The brakes are probably the thing you need to get used to most in this car. They're a little bit like a block of wood. But first, let's get her off the line. We can't do a launch control as per Maserati's request. Brakes feel like you're pushing on a block of wood, but there's not an initial bite to them. And there's not an initial comfort to them like you get in a McLaren, let's say a 600 LT. They certainly work. But there's always a sensation that like, ooh, they're not there right away. And maybe these carbon ceramics are just kind of old school where they need a lot of heat to feel like that. But not here. Now, unlike, let's say, a Lamborghini Huracan, I do feel like I need to be a bit more cautious. There's so much grip, though. So there's this impending sense of danger, which I think really suits the supercar. But the only thing is that this boosty motor is a little peaky. So it gives you a lot of torque in a very small amount of pedal travel. You find yourself short shifting it because the amount of torque going to these rear wheels at redline is just unnecessary. But the front end, man, oh my goodness, the way this thing turns in, it's so ready to go. It's really impressive. Really gobbles up roads like this, like an absolute monster. The seating position is pretty low in the car. I feel higher in the Huracan. This feels very real life supercar, not trying to just please people. This is trying to please drivers. I feel like the Huracan is easy to drive for anybody. It's accessible speed and power. This is not. I would definitely think twice about handing the keys to this car to, like, anybody. The blinker stock, it's like old BMW, and I find myself leaving my blinker on a lot. You collect speed really quickly, which gives you a great reason to use these brakes, and they don't feel like they're ever going to go away. had to bond with the rear end of this car a little bit. I have to admit, it scared me. I'm starting to figure it out. I'm starting to respect it. But this is just a real incredible driving experience. It's rewarding because the sense of impending doom means that you feel like a hero when you get it right. This mirror camera is a little frustrating to me. You may be able to adjust this, but I feel like every time I look up, my eyes actually have to adjust to it as if I'm like looking through someone else's glasses. It's like I'm not initially focused on it, but it works pretty well nonetheless. Yeah, I'm starting to trust this rear end a heck of a lot more. There's always going to be a Prius in your way, no matter where you are. And that's kind of a fact of life when it comes to enthusiast driving, supercar driving. We are on roads shared with people. So your fun is often short-lived. I spent a lot of time in traffic in a Lamborghini Huracan Technica the other night, and it was a bummer, man. It really wasn't fun. You know, it sounds great, but there's an element of reality to these cars that we are not always out in the most pristine, beautiful, picturesque places all to ourselves. We have to be respectful of pedestrians and cyclists, but man, the least you can do if you're in a Prius and you see this face staring at you is just move over to the side for a second. Good canyon etiquette goes a long way. There's miles per hour. Let's go chase him down. I think this car might make a lot more sense on a racetrack or just out on some big sweepers like this. When you get it into the tight stuff and you're really trying to utilize that boost regularly, it gets a little dicey. And Miles' CT4 Blackwing is incredible. It's just about managing this rear end. And I know it still has some nanny systems in it, but there's still an edge to it. And if you're looking for a real sort of supercar experience, this is gonna be it, because it really does deliver on the fear factor, and it's pretty cool. So thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. Well, hey there!
Hello, I was wondering which POV boy I would get.